to this week's episode of the Gear Change episode on the Drivetime podcast. I'm joined again in the studio by Andy Barratt. We're going to have a Middle East spotlight with some fun and games on our playlist episode, so stay tuned. So Andy, in this week's episode, in our Gear Change episode, we like to do a bit of a lighter look at some of the bigger topics we've covered in our main episode. What I wanted to do was just get from you some top tips you can give us from the Middle East market, which is an area that you now focus very heavily on.
For me, it's very simple. The Middle East is going through a dramatic change. We're sitting here in London today, surrounded by probably 10, 12 Chinese brands. We're talking about markets with 50 or 60 brands. They're arriving every week. A new brand will pop up. Sometimes a brand will rebrand itself and start again alongside its existing brand. And we'll talk about that in a second. So, there's a lot of change. It's dramatic. It's really dynamic in the speed that it's going. But not everyone will survive. So in terms of picking the right brand, some of it's going to be luck, some of it is going to be insight, and some of it is how well you do. But what's really happening is the Middle East market is becoming competitive. It's never been that competitive. It's been a set of brand loyalists that will go in and they will pay whatever they needed to pay to get the cars that they chose. Today, it's mirroring the behavior of a European market where margins are coming down very quickly. Dealers are fighting for the customer insight, and customers have got the power. So it's been a bit of a flip around from where it's been. So what the dealers need to do is innovate in what they do around looking after the customer. And the biggest thing that I see coming, or it's not car related, it's building an ecosystem that actually looks after the customer and empowers the dealer to read the data and the insights and everything else. I'm kind of a bore. I get on my soapbox and talk about data all the time. I really do have a passion for really great CRM, and I've not seen it anywhere in the Middle East. I want to see individualized customer journeys with different trigger points, different events that a customer may have that triggers a communication that is relevant, whether it's a service, whether it's a free car wash Friday, if you're in Kuwait or whatever it is, it doesn't matter. And this ecosystem does not exist in any business, whether you're premium or budget, it just doesn't exist. And it's a very digitally savvy market, the highest levels of social media adoption globally. WhatsApp is kind of the go-to platform in terms of people don't telephone call each other, they WhatsApp and call that way, or constant broadcast messages out from retailers. And the auto industry's got to innovate, catch up, and build a really strong ecosystem that is future-proof. We talk about omni-channel.
Yes.
There's no channel,
It's just, so I think thinking about your point there, so WhatsApp obviously is part of Meta, Instagram, Facebook, we're all kind of active in those channels. So, but also you can geolocate any device. So you mentioned about automating, and actually as consumers, Andy, we expect that anyway. I get targeted by tactical messaging. Retailers have been doing it. Traditional grocery retailers have been doing it for years. They know when you've had a baby, when you've bought a dog, so Amazon will know I've got a puppy. I've been buying lots of toys. I've just bought a crate, blah, blah, blah. So it'll know exactly what my life stage is. And it is targeting me with appropriate messages to upsell me into other things. Some of it means I haven't got to think too hard. I'm like, oh, brilliant. It will tell me when my dog food's about to run out. It knows my behavior. So I think we can learn an awful lot from those providers who are doing it really well. And as consumers, we quite like not having to think too much. Yeah. So I think that's a great tip, isn't it? Is make sure that you've got a strategy around. Another thing as well that's coming is connected vehicle data. The vehicle is telling you stuff. You can start to access when something might need to be repaired or replaced or serviced. So make sure you get me in.
Absolutely.
Time. Yeah.
Absolutely. That prognostic data that you can get from the vehicle that's reading fault codes, etc., is very, very powerful. But it doesn't matter how much data you've got unless you do something with it. Yes. And that's the challenge is, I'm seeing the data. What is it telling me to do? Yeah. And I'm actually going to do anything about it, or I'm just going to wait for a distressed customer to come in. And I think whoever gets there first will steal that march, because customers are no longer buying loyal brands, they're not buying legacy brands, they're buying technology, and they're buying experience.
Yes.
And what any distributor or dealer has to do is provide a differentiated level of experience. And your Amazon example is perfect. We all remember Amazon starting as an online bookstore. Most of us run our lives through, it comes to buying gifts or anything, it doesn't matter. And if you're Alexa enabled, you're doing it, you're not even touching anything. So the fact that level of technology has taken over our lives in a way that's added value and brought convenience.
Yeah.
What we in the auto industry have to do is try and replicate that experience, whether it's an omni-channel experience, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I would love the day when, I go into a dealership, the automatic number plate recognition has already found me. My preferred drink is waiting for me, and I feel like a welcome guest, not an unwanted relative at a family wedding.
Yeah.
It's that kind of
Uncle. I don't want to be that guy. No,
it's that kind of challenge that you want to do. And no one really finds buying a car a pleasurable experience today. It doesn't matter if you put a big bow or flowers that you give, if the journey to that purchase has not been as pleasant as it should be.
Yeah.
I know dealers that have strong relationships where they've had, and this is in the UK, a customer will ring up and say, I'm thinking about buying a new car. Can you just order me a blue one and I'll come in and sort it out at some point? Because they've built that relationship and that level of trust, et cetera, et cetera. And
I'm that person. I'm like, I know exactly what I want. I wanted, and I've got what I want. I knew what I wanted, and I kind of waited until the right range was there. I knew what color I wanted, what interior I wanted. I was like, I just knew what I wanted, which is great. But what I loved, you just said something there I wanted to just repeat, which is consumers are buying technology and they're buying convenience. I think that's really important to mention. In the main episode, Andy, you talked about making sure that there's a real kind of lack of new talent, new thinking, and we want to try and make sure that we harness some of that out of our industry thinking and bring it into our industry so we do catch up in automotive. So I think that's something else you mentioned in the main episode that's also worth kind of reminding ourselves on. But consumers are buying tech. Thinking about tech, is there a tech tool that you personally can't live without? Because we always do a bit of in this episode, we do what tech tool that you really rely on in your life?
The sad thing is I love tech, but I'm a bit of a dinosaur.
Okay.
So it really is just my iPhone. I live, everything kind of comes through it in terms of the convenience that it gives us all. And it's often, I think about my journey on a mobile phone, because my days at Ford, we were all given the Motorola brick and that transition, and we all got the Nokia and thought we could never live without it. And we look at where we are today.
Yeah.
There's as much computing power in an iPhone or the equivalent that probably took the first rocket to the moon. It's that level of change.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. You look at the way that our smartphone interacts with a vehicle. None of us use any OEM navigation system anymore because we just use whatever is on, whether it's Waze or anything else that we choose to use. Yeah. So it has become instrumental to every single thing we do in our life.
Yeah.
And I think, it's the greatest innovation. This could be the hardest thing to kind of compete with. But tech gives us a platform. It's then what we do with it and what we then bolt into it to become the enabler for everything that we want to do. I've got really kind of heavily into the kind of use of AI recently. I'm kind of pushing against everyone else in my age group because I'm creating some online training videos at the moment, and I'm creating an avatar in one AI program, a script in another one, and then bringing those together in a third program to make the video, etc. So, I'm learning as I go along, and I find it really exciting. But ultimately, it's always going to be the phone, I think.
I think that's great, though. But the fact that you're playing with AI is brilliant. And like that phone, though, when we talk about the data footprint that you're leaving on your phone is really rich data. So the whatever you're searching for, however you're consuming, it's your algorithm in the back end of whatever engine you're looking at is learning about your behavior and then automating what comes next. So there's some really incredible technology that goes into those algorithms that are being designed and engineered by people that understand your social conscience. So they're wiring into your brain and triggering certain behaviors based on your activity. Yeah. So I think it's making sure that we we understand what tech is being used. And as an OEM or a retailer, if you're using everything on your phone, do everything with me on my mobile. That's how I access everything. So connect all of those pieces together is really important. So look, just a bit of fun. We always ask every guest, Andy, about their dream destination or road trip. So either a road trip that you've been on or a bucket list road trip that you're kind of hopefully now trying to slow down a bit. You've been very busy. You're like, no, semi-retired. Not at all. No, you're still going. But if you do have some time, what is on your, because you've traveled now, you've had some great time in the Middle East, but is there anywhere in the world that you haven't been that you want to go, or anywhere that you've been that you'd love to recommend?
It's interesting. I've been very lucky. I've done so many road trips, either through press launches at Ford, some time that we spent as a family in South America, and obviously quite a lot in the Middle East, although the Middle East is just primarily sand. There's one that always sticks in my mind that I would love to do, and think of the opening scene to a really great film, The Italian Job, the original one.
Yeah.
And they're driving through the Pyrenees. And I would love to go and do a journey like that in a beautiful old sports car and drive through the Pyrenees and just kind of replicate the emotion of it. I don't necessarily need to drive an orange Lamborghini or whatever, but I would love to do a road trip through the Pyrenees, basically. I think it'd be absolutely breathtaking, but without any time urgency. It doesn't matter how long it takes, but that would be the ideal one and on the bucket list.
Right. Definitely have to kind of add that to we're going to sort of plan some great routes. And then while you're on your road trip in your classic sports car, top down or top up? Got to be top down, surely.
Yeah, top down, obviously. Course, yeah.
And then, but what are you going to be listening to? What's kind of on in your CD player or Spotify playlist?
My problem is I love every kind of music, and I can listen to anything from heavy rock through to jazz and classical. And, if you want some somber music, you can listen to Gorecki Symphony No. 3, which is called Sorrowful Songs. If you really want a spiritual piece, that's the one to go to. Particularly love David Gray at the moment, or even Josh Groban at the moment. I kind of listen to it all. So if I was picking my perfect song of the moment, I'll be Down with the Kids, and it'll be Harry Styles, As It Was.
Love that. We're going to put that on the Drivetime podcast playlist. David Gray, by the way, is touring.
Really?
I've just got tickets.
Oh, fantastic.
He's been on my list of people I've always wanted to see. And they do, I live up in Peterborough, but there's also Lincoln Castle. They do some brilliant outdoor gigs. So I've just booked tickets for David Gray, but he's doing a few. He's also got some in Ireland. And I was like, me and my partner, do we go to Ireland and watch him there? But we're going to do Lincoln because it's closer.
Perfect.
So brilliant. So I'll put Harry Styles on our playlist. Love that. Andy Barratt, again, thank you so much for joining us on this Gear Change episode of the Drivetime podcast. I honestly would love to also link to your online training courses. I think there's any resources that we can share with our audience that helps them feel more confident with tech. We'd love to give you a shout out with that as well.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Jacqui.
My pleasure. So that was Andy Barratt joining us again on the Gear Change episode of the Drivetime podcast. Don't forget, if you're watching us on YouTube, to give us a like, subscribe, and you'll never miss an episode of the Drivetime podcast. Thanks for watching, as always.